Hello, Elixir here. Today we're going to be talking about this cute, fluffy little wolf. The one that's going to tear and maim all your settlers in the future. Hopeless Dave and Drake Wolf have spent a lot of time getting this model up and running and animate it, as you can see here. But now we have to get it into the game. So that's the fun and tricky part. So today we'll be looking at all the steps required to get him into the game. At this point we have to add the wolf asset into Unity. We had some old assets in there that were previous models, so we're going to add the new model here. And as we do it, we're going to get it into the actual game scene, and then as we play we can see it come in. But it doesn't come in quite as expected. So as you can see, it's a lot larger than we really intended. So while giant wolves may be something we add later in the game, it's not something we want right now. So let's look into fixing this. So all that takes is messing with the import settings for a bit, and through trial and error and messing around, we get Tiny Wolf. And it's so cute. But then we get this abomination, and after a few more tweaks, we actually get the right size. So let's see, and there we go. Now that looks like a wolf that'll terrify your settlers. So now that we have the wolf in game, what do we do now? Well, it's just hovering there. It's not interacting with physics around it. So Unity physics actually works really well. You have to give an object a rigid body and a mesh collider. The mesh collider could be different sizes, but you want to shape it to the size of the actual wolf. And that's what we do here with this capsule collider. However, when you play with this in game, you can often have some hilarious side effects, like the wolf rolling down the hill. And in this case, it just keeps rolling. So all fun aside, we actually get a rectangular mesh collider here that fits well and actually looks like it works well in game. So next is to set up the animations that Hopeless Dave put together for us. So to do that, we'll need to add the animation controller to the game object and pull out all the animations from the file and put it in the controller. So we'll go ahead and do that, organize them so that we can see what's going on, and then apply a couple. So here's the walking animation. So we're moving the wolf manually just to see how it looks on the terrain, and it seems to be working as expected, and everything's working out well. Eventually we'll have to make it so that it doesn't walk through trees or grasses, but we'll get there eventually. And now comes the fun part, to actually spawn it in as intended in the world in various locations. So we're using Unity's Entity Component System, ECS for short, part of their advanced processing that enables many objects to be in the game at one time. So as we first add the wolves into the scene, we notice that they're A, buried into the ground, and B, rotated oddly. So I'm excavating here just to see how they respond. I'm going to rotate them a little bit upside down at first, and apparently it affects the trees as well, which either a strong wind blew or a giant came through and had fun with the terrain. So we'll go ahead and split the fauna from the flora so that we can rotate them individually. And then hopefully once we get this done, the trees will stand and the wolves will be the correct orientation. And they are. Just still underground. And still floaty. So at this point I drop a game object in just to make sure physics applies. But it doesn't apply to the entity that's copied from the game object. Just the way the Unity handles the differences between game objects and entities. At this point I realize that physics applies differently in entities, and I have to go back to the drawing board. Boo. So after many hours of research, we found out that yes, physics does work with ECS, however animations are not yet supported. So any 3D models that have animation rigging does not convert over the ECS readily. There is an early experimental package for it, but the code is changing rapidly, so it's not something we want to build around yet. We're stress testing here how many game objects we can put in, which are less optimized than entities, but we can still get in about 1,000 wolves before it starts hitting the frame rate. So with that entity cap limit, we're able to move comfortable forward towards alpha, at least until the entity component system animation package is ready. So while we have all the wolves in a line, and we don't have a can-can animation, we'll set the ones we do have and see what looks funny. And the dying looks hilarious. But everything else is disappointing.
Boo!
So then we go to power mode and get to work and convert all the entity code that we use to create the entities for the fauna into game objects, which feels like a step backward, but we had to do it for now. And despite speeding this up as fast as we can, it's still too long for this video. So we'll take a short break.
A lot of boring math later.
Hey, it worked! So as we move around the world, the wolves are loading in, they're moving, so the animations are working correctly. Perhaps there's maybe too many wolves as we look around, and they seem to be multiplying as we load the same chunks over and over again. So let's take a quick look at that, and we should be done. And there we go. The world is loading in as expected. There are wolves and they're animating. As we move around and reload chunks, there is no duplication of entities. So mission successful. The next steps from here would be to get the wolves moving on the map from location to location, to get the walking animations working, the running as they increase their speed, the idle as they stand around, get all that up and running, but that's going to be a topic for another day and perhaps another video. So for now, I'll bid you a fond farewell from everyone at Recube Studios and everyone working on the Satus team. Thanks again.